Hey everyone, so welcome to another Get More Students webinar. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alex Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube, but you will be very familiar with Herbert Gerzer and Corinne, who will be coming shortly. But let me just introduce you to today. We've got not only Herbert, who you know is a digital advertising expert, Corinne, who'll be popping in shortly, who's our content marketing specialist. But most importantly, we have Natalia Kukik join us. And sorry, Natalia, it doesn't look like I've got the best photo. It looks a bit pixelated, so apologies.
Okay.
You can see her right there, though. So she's clearly much better in the flesh. But Natalia is the founder of Tutoring. And really from that, and actually I won't describe it too well, rather I'll leave that to Natalia to explain Tutoring. But a lot of that is about providing tutors with a web page that's and also possibly some extra resources that really help a tutor get up and started. So that expertise really comes into the form of also SEO and really understanding how web pages work and what makes a great web page. So I'm definitely excited about your presentation, Natalia. But very briefly, do you want to just tell us again? Just I might have missed some of your history and experience.
Yeah, sure. So maybe let me talk about why we created Tutoring.
Sure.
What we discovered is that for tutors, it is expected to tackle so many admin things versus like their core business is really teaching. Depending what do you teach, sometimes you call it tutoring. With English, it's more like teaching. But also finding students, because that's what helps you grow your business. Not all the sites that normally you have to spend time and they expect you to be experts in. And this comes as alternative to like general website builders, as you probably noticed, they're for all different industries. So doctors are going to go to the same website builder, lawyers going to go to the same website builder, right? And they just get their own template, nothing else. But those website builders are filled with many, many features that tutors and schools don't really need. So why to waste time trying to learn something that is useless to you, right? So on the other hand, then we only focus on tutors. So the website is already optimized. We study how people choose tutors, where to put certain action buttons, and so on and so forth.
Brilliant. So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously you'd have quite almost a scientific sort of understanding of what these web pages do. So again, I'm really excited to introduce you to Natalia in her section, which will just be probably after Herbert's today. So listen in, but the first one, I did want to give people a bit of an update on what's happening in the education sector. I usually start with that just so that people are kind of aware of what's hot. And actually, Herbert and Natalia, if you've got any other things that I haven't put on this little list, there's just a couple of highlights. We talked a little bit about China banning for-profit tutoring in last month. So that was kind of big news, particularly last month. But I mean, that news is still very, very present at the moment. Certainly from the LearnCube perspective, where we have people inquiring about our online school lite, like our all-in-one solution, we're getting a lot more independent tutors that have come from teaching into China and now no longer being able to. So I think there's still a lot of repercussions to come from there. But I thought there was something really interesting in the news this month, which was Microsoft acquiring Take Lessons. So Take Lessons is quite a large tutoring organization, online tutoring, and have been doing so for, I think, since 2003, so a very long time. But I thought it was very curious because you've got a massive tech giant that already has a bit of I guess, some curiosity in education, even though it's still, I think, predominantly focused on serving the business market, particularly with teens and its other products. Herbert and Natalia, I don't know if you kind of noted that, and if you had any kind of thoughts about what's happening with big tech giants getting into an active space in online tutoring.
Definitely, it's not new, right? So if you look at various tech companies, they have products dedicated to education only, because this industry is huge. And if you look at the long-term trends, even before COVID, online learning was really growing fast, right? And then what happened because of COVID, it just made people aware or kind of okay with that you don't have to sacrifice anything when you teach online. Obviously, it really depends who is your client and target. You're gonna hear teachers saying, oh yeah, but like with 3-year-old kids or 5-year-old kids, it's really difficult, right? I'm just talking about general industry. Yeah. And acquisitions are one of the ways to, you know, get quickly into industry if you don't have expertise or exposure to. For this reason, very often, like what you want to look is the long term, what happens after, because acquisition, but like to be honest with you, because I spent my life also in banking, investment banking for a while, like most of them fail. So I would love to see what happens in the next 3-5 years.
Yeah. Herbert, any thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot of money being pummeled into online education at the moment. I know that like from Austria, Go Student, huge platform, got hundreds of millions of funding, is now the biggest ed tech company in Europe. Babbel and some other
I just saw Babbel's actually going public as well, so that was a new announcement this month. And we saw Quizlet also joining the queue, and there's been a lot of activity, not necessarily in the going public, but also in the Indian education sector. Baiju's really getting quite involved in acquisition. So yeah, lots happening. But I did want to finish on this point, which was English UK did like a marketing conference quite recently. I just thought, I've just put the link there. If you just even Google it with that UK marketing conference, they've got a nice blog, and there were just some nice takeaways. And I thought that anyone could learn from that. So yeah, just a little tip. But what I want to do is keep us focused on what we're here today, which is to get more students. So Herbert, I'm going to pass over to you. And if you can, tell us all about, we're going to be talking about Facebook ads, aren't we, Herbert?
Yes, something brand new. No, just joking. Something I talk about all the time, but that's what we do every day. So
let me just give you the host. You are now the host here, Herbert.
Fantastic.
Officially, I'll go into supporter role and help those that may need some prodding with some questions too, because we do have a section at the end of this which is particularly about Q&A, and that's how we can really add a lot of value to you today. Is if you've got questions, you've got 3 of us that can all really pitch in to help.
So yeah, put those questions in while we're doing the presentations, and we'll answer them after the session. So I wanted to cover 7 fatal Facebook ad mistakes to avoid to get the most out of your advertising dollar for Q4. We have 7 things to get through, not a lot of time, so let's get straight into it. So number 1 is not verifying your domain or configuring web events in your ads manager. Now, there have been a lot of changes with Facebook Ads Manager in the past few months with the update on iOS, Apple's new software. And so you have to take some steps in order to prime your ad account to successfully launch your campaigns. Now, I'm not going to go through this on the video because that will take some time, but I would definitely recommend you to Google it. Facebook has a very good list of instructions on how to do that, and there are, of course, plenty of YouTube videos to look at. So that is number 1. Number 2 is targeting to small audiences. Now, again, with these changes with iOS 14, you really want to give the Facebook's algorithm enough room to find your ideal target audience. And in the early days of Facebook advertising, we used to use very specific targeted interest-based audiences, females between the age of 20 and 30 interested in, I don't know, English language and USA and et cetera, et cetera. And then you might have an audience size of 50, 60, 70,000 people. That used to work then, it does not work today. So you really have to have a minimum of 500,000 people in your audience when you're creating them on Ads Manager. An ideal size is 1.5 to 3 million. Now, of course, if you are a local business, a local school, and you're only operating within a certain geographic area, this won't apply to you. Obviously, the smaller the city, the broader your targeting has to be. If your town or city only has a population of 400,000, then you're going to have to target all of those people, and of course, within the age ranges that are suitable for you. So number 3 is optimizing for the wrong objective. Now, I see this quite a lot from Facebook advertisers because it is quite confusing. Facebook offers you all of these types of different campaign objectives. And so you're like, brand awareness, that sounds pretty good. Traffic, yes, I want more traffic to my website. But I assume, and this is the case for 95% of language schools and tutoring companies, that you only want one of two things. You want more leads or you want more purchases, which includes registrations and enrollments. So that is why if you are wanting to get leads and enrollments, registrations, then you should always use the conversion objective. And once you've done that, so we want to create a conversion campaign, then we also have to choose the event that we want to optimize in the ad set level, here the conversion event. Now, this also has to reflect what your goal is. If you want to get a lead, that might be for someone to fill in a lead form or a contact, a free trial or a demo. Then you would choose lead, for example. And of course, this needs to be set up in your ads manager as a pixel event, but that's another video, or of course, purchase. So someone registering or enrolling in a course. So that is number 3. Number 4 is not testing new ad creators. So when you launch a campaign, you cannot just let it run forever, right? You always have to look at the data to make sure that you're not experiencing ad fatigue, where people are sick and tired of seeing the same ad over and over again. Now, depending on the size of your audience, this will happen sooner or later, but it will always happen without a doubt. And so as you see your performance drop, your cost per lead or cost per enrollment increasing, that is a sign for you to test new ads and new creators. And you should always have a library of photos and videos to use so that you are not hard pressed to launch new creatives, and also brainstorming new ad copy, new ad angles to touch on different pain points or desires. So that is number 4. Number 5 is relying on only website visitors for retargeting. Now, if you follow my content, I'm a huge advocate for retargeting campaigns. Usually they are the most profitable campaigns. And of course, we want to target anyone who has visited your website. However, because of the changes with iOS 14, the audience size for website visitors has decreased. And you'll even see this come up as a notification on Facebook here. Size of your website custom audience may decrease, etc. So we want to add more retargeting audiences, more custom audiences to your retargeting campaign so that we reach as many people as possible. Now, this could be your Facebook followers. So for example, you could create a custom audience based on people who engage with your Facebook profile. That could also be your Instagram profile. You could also upload lists of leads from the past 1, 2, 3 years, however many. Newsletter subscribers is also an excellent way of capturing people who you might miss through all website visitors audience on Facebook. Number 6 is changing things too often. I know there is a tendency to fiddle around and to tinker with the campaigns. As soon as they launch, maybe 24 hours after you launch a campaign, you're not seeing results and you think, I think this photo would be better, or maybe I'll change the headline. Now, you should always test new creatives, new headlines, new ad copy, but you do not want to change things too often because you will interfere with the learning process of Facebook's algorithm. So my kind of rule of thumb is to launch a campaign, wait 5 to 7 days, go back in, look at the data, see what's getting you results, what's costing less per click, what's costing less per lead or enrollment, and then optimize those, duplicate those, and test different variations of the ones that are getting you the best performance for the least amount of ad budget. And number 7 is delivering poor customer experience. Now, I know this should sound like a no-brainer, but Facebook is also really clamping down on this, and they want to make sure that only quality advertisers are on the platform, and they actually survey your customers. In the background, without you knowing, they send people you are targeting surveys to find out what the experience has been like with your school, your company. And that means if your website or landing page is too slow, if it's broken, if you don't get back to them in an appropriate amount of time, or the shopping cart doesn't work to register for a course, that leads to a poor experience. That means you get negative feedback on your ad account. And what can actually happen is that Facebook will restrict or deactivate your ad account. And trust me, you do not want to deal with that, because it is quite a challenging and time-consuming task to get ad accounts reactivated with Facebook. So those were 7 fatal Facebook ads mistakes to avoid. I hope they were helpful, and I hope you can apply them to improve your performance of your campaigns. That was it for me.
Herbert, this was so good. If in the background you want to pass over the baton to Natalia, I just thought that was, I mean, yeah, they were the mistake. I was like, oh, I have definitely done a couple of those ones. One of the ones I loved was the one on even the targeting the audience. Like, I think it's easy, even in my own experience, I was like, surely we want to go for a really narrow audience. We're not wasting money. But I think, as you say, you kind of got to give a little bit of space, don't you?
You do. The thing is, with a narrow audience, you're not actually targeting all of that audience. So if you have an audience of 100,000 people, you're actually not targeting. 100,000 people will not see your ad. And so only 5%, 10% of those people might see your ad. So that's why you need to increase the audience size in order for more people to see your ad, and the likelihood of the right people seeing your ad.
Yeah, I wonder if it's also about that saturation point as well, right? So as you say, 5 or 10%, but if you're, if you've got a very small audience and you get that, say 20%, suddenly, people are going to be very over your ads very, very quickly. And Facebook will start you costing, spending a lot more money on those ads.
Exactly. Yeah, very true.
I also really liked your idea on the retargeting audience as well. I thought that was, totally on top.
Great.
Natalia, we're ready for your amazing presentation. Now, while Natalia is just bringing up her screen, Natalia, we're going to be talking about SEO. So I'm very intrigued. Let's go for it.
Yes.
Cool. Let's share the screen. Oh, there's so many buttons that I need to reposition now. So hopefully you can see this one now.
That's great. Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. Let's move our photos for myself that I can see it too. So I like keeping things simple and straight, because what I notice, people, especially if they work in certain industry, they kind of keep the lingo and then nobody understands what's really happening behind the scenes. And I'm gonna also try to be short, because I really prefer you guys to type your questions so that I can address them as we go. So just give me a second. Okay, so what is, in a nutshell, SEO? Obviously, it stands from search engine optimization, but what it really does, it decides about how your website is visible in Google. so how it ranks. And for deep understanding, it's important to remember that majority of people would just look at the first few hits in the Google search. So I don't know, 4 or 5 of them. But in general, your whole focus is being concentrated on this first page. Like almost nobody goes to the second one. So if anything about you ranks on the second one, like just think about it, it doesn't rank at all. And there are different things you should keep in mind. So I prepared a short journey when you kind of from the moment when you launch your website to when you really succeed with SEO. And something that very obvious things that many of us forget, but I can see issues when people are launching website, it doesn't rank at all. So not the fact that it's like 1,000 or millionth item in Google search, it just doesn't show. And people freak out then. So let me quickly explain that this is normal. And this is basically because Google is self-learning system, which means they send to the websites something that we call crawlers. So like kind of mini bots, which go to existing websites to discover every other website that links to it. So if you have a new website that nobody links to, probably you would not show in Google. You can notify Google about this. You can create your sitemap and so on and so forth to solve those issues. But don't freak out. These things are figure outable. 2 is obviously you want to find out where do you rank. And for this one, as I mentioned, the first page is critical. Ideally, you would like to be in the first few items that Google shows. And the last one, because to be honest, ranking in Google or the whole game with SEO is difficult. I want you to think about not only SEO, but what is your strategy for Google? Because SEO is not the only thing that people are going to find you in Google. Like there are many other ways, like Google Maps or your social media. Surprise, surprise, it helps a lot. And so I've got a slide which is also going to show you what other tools you can use if you don't want to get into the battle and improve your SEO, because maybe it's not worth your time. And SEO and what Google cares about is really a few simple things. 1 is keywords, 2 is how much content you produce, and 3 are backlinks. What are backlinks? Backlinks are basically other websites which link to your website. The better quality of those links, so very respective pages, if they rank to your page, the higher you rank in Google. And also, amount of backlink is important, slightly of lower priority, but this is something that you can always start because it's difficult to force Wikipedia to link to your own website, right? Or like Amazon or like those kind of high respective places. When people talk about SEO, very often you're gonna hear something which is domain authority. And this could be very difficult concept to understand because per se, like it doesn't impact how you rank in Google, which is interesting. It's just a metric. It's a metric which tries to predict how you will rank in Google, but it's not as good as Uncle Google. Like Uncle Google always knows more, and there's no other way to compete with this. So for comparison, domain authority will take into account 40 factors, how your website ranks, versus Google more than 200, 300, depending, because they never really tell you how the algorithm works, but that's what people predict. So significantly more. And now, obviously, it sounds all simple. So those 3 factors that I mentioned to you, that keywords, content, and backlinks that Google cares about, but devil is in details. That's why it's so, in the end of the day, it's not really an easy journey. And about keywords, if you want to focus on this part to get it into up to speed, really think about what we call long tail keywords. There's a huge difference if you advertise yourself, or like if you find a keyword for your business, which is ESL teacher versus ESL freelance teacher helping students apply to universities abroad, right? So think about those long terms, which are at least 4+ words, simply because you as a school don't feel offended, but most of the cases you're going to be a small player versus big corporations, right? So all those general terms like ESL teacher and so on and so forth, they have been taken, and there's no way for you with your budget to produce as much content to win this competition. But what you can do, and that's much better strategy, is to find those few keywords much longer that people still search. Probably it's not going to be 1,000 people checking it every month, but maybe 10 or 100, but you can apply a few of them. So once you add up a few long keywords, you can kind of get to this same or similar level, right? It just requires more hustle. But unfortunately, Google, I call it Google SEO war, where you try to compete, is it's not supportive for small businesses in general. Like the bigger you are, then the better for you. You have budget, you pay people for producing content. Very often, like you have a few blogs being posted every day, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind. And I want to show you, there are two resources pretty well known. One is Ubersuggest. So when you choose keywords, obviously this is for me, this is my testing account, so something not relevant, but you should look at two things. So you have your keywords that you kind of came up with, and now you try to, this is for my business, so about websites, right? But you kind of try to think, okay, which keywords make sense for me, right? And you look at the column volume, because it tells you how many people visit or type this keyword, this phrase to Google every month. And also you look at something that it's going to be called SEO difficulty. And here, the higher the number, the more difficult it is to rank. So let's take the example. You have this one, tutoring website templates, right? 110 people type this one per month. But now the SD, so difficulty, is pretty high. It's 74 out of 100. So chances for you winning this are pretty low. You should check something which is slightly lower. Obviously, the lower difficulty, the lower traffic too. This is something I mentioned, just then sum up different keywords that you'll be using. So this one is already better. It's still not great. It's 30. 30 sometimes is pretty tough. But this is already better. Volume is small, but that's what you are trying to do. You're trying to optimize for those keywords that may, on the one hand, still have traffic, but are not too difficult to win. So that's this part that I mentioned, check visitors and actionable strategy. So choose a few keywords. We can then move to another factor which matters for Google, which is content. And here, remember, if you want to ever use SEO as a strategy, key is to produce a lot of content. What I mean by content, most people usually would think blog, and yes, that's the most popular one, right? And each blog you have, each article you have to optimize for certain keywords that you want it to rank. Because what happens is you have this one article that you want to be discovered by people. For example, how I teach kids between 3 and 4 years old, right? And how I teach English to them. So you write this blog, and then you include those keywords that you selected previously. And what are the places that you can include them? Obviously, this is the text, right? So like whatever you're going to write about, but also the title. This is very important, especially the main title. Google pays a lot of attention to this, but also what is going to be your URL. So www, if you include certain keywords that you wanted to rank for, the higher chances for you. Also, you include them behind, this might sound not intuitive for people who don't code, but you can include keywords behind images, videos, and other media. And why is it there? It's basically for people with disabilities. I mean, that's why in coding we invented this, but it also helps with your SEO ranking, right? There are other also ways. So titles and descriptions. I'm going to show you what is a title and description. So let me just put, let's say, my company, or we can put LearnCube too. So this is the title. This is what people see when they Google you. This is description. And in most website builders, you would need to insert it manually. For example, with Tutoring, what we do is, because we know people don't have to be experts in websites, we do it for them. So based on like how they create and what kind of words they use in their on their website, we just do it for them automatically. So you don't even have to be aware. But yeah, if you use Wix or like more general builders like Wix, remember, go there and input those words, because they're not going to be automatic for you. Oh, and adding also internal links to your content. So for example, if you have your main page, let's say homepage, and then you link to a certain article, or you have article which links to another article, it helps a lot too. So keep that in mind, like linking your own things, your own content on different pages, it helps a lot. And the last one are those backlinks that I mentioned. How many, what kind of quality links you have. And obviously, as I mentioned, the better quality website link to you, the better it is. And you also have to make sure you don't have those bad links. So because that has a negative impact. You can obviously check for your own website. I listed here the names where you can go and just type your website, and it's gonna tell you. So yeah, this is in a nutshell what's happening with SEO. But now you are gonna probably ask me, yeah, like it feels like a lot of work. Should I really care about it? And answer is, it depends. So if you're gonna go to people who, for a living, they do SEO, they're gonna tell you, obviously you can't succeed without it. But the truth is, it really depends what kind of business you are. If you are this individual tutor who has his own website, like one-person business, or like very small firm where a very small company where marketing and admin and taxes and teaching, it's you, but it's branded as a school, I would say forget about SEO. Like there are other ways you can use to make sure people can find you in Google. Obviously, they're going to be less successful or give you less impact and less results. But SEO would be so time consuming for you, and it would not gonna bring the results you might expect. Now, if you are a kind of medium bigger company and you have somebody who takes control of your marketing and your website and your tech, definitely check it out and try to rank higher and higher and higher. Because what is important here for you to remember, it's never-ending journey. So it's not the fact that in the beginning of dealing with this, you're just going to create keywords, write some blogs, and that's it. No, it's important to keep producing content all over again. That's why you actually might consider to pay somebody even for doing it, unless you have so much time or like you love writing so much, then contribute as well. But this is one way of doing it, just dedicate to other people and pay for it. And also the backlinks. Backlinks also is something that you have to constantly review, because you are going to get those backlinks that can impact negatively your SEO ranking. And you might want to improve your backlinks as well. So obviously in the beginning, you're not going to get the best backlinks ever. It's important just to have them. But once you grow in this journey, you want to improve them all over again. So when you think about SEO and whether you should focus on this, this is important for you to consider. And as I mentioned, this is literally the last thing I would like to tell you, is Google is not only SEO. And there are other ways that you can use towards your advantage. So think about social media, and I'm going to show you on live example in a second. There's also Google My Business. This is also having very simple website, but having for critical things like your name or like what's your business niche, right? And obviously also blogs. And let me go quickly to search. Question to you guys: have you ever Googled yourself LearnCube? Let's see what can happen.
Yeah.
So obviously it's your website, right?
Yeah.
And why I'm saying this, like many people would think, yeah, but nobody's gonna know my name. And like I'm, let's say, oh, I use this profile, Natalie Smith, math tutor, right? Like nobody's gonna know my name. They're not gonna go to Google and type my name. And that's a mistake, especially which is important for business like tutoring and education. Less like tech, like what we do, right? But majority of people, when they find teachers and tutors, they know their names from referrals, or they have seen them on social media. Because tutoring business is mainly based on trust, not like random discovery on Google. Obviously, people are gonna type, oh, find a math tutor near me. But if you look through Google, there's no private tutor there. They're just big schools, right? So depending where you live, you're gonna get different hits, but you're not gonna have private tutors there. So like, just don't even try. Most people, when they are gonna discover you, they already heard your name. Maybe from a friend, maybe from a family, maybe somebody mentioned you in social media, maybe you have a YouTube channel or Facebook page or something, right? So let's go with the experiment. So LearnCube. So obviously there's a website that people find. What else do they find? Reviews. This is nice one. So make sure, like, if there are like any kind of blogs, or there are sometimes like there are platforms which only do ratings and reviews, you are there, because they are pretty well ranked, right? And then if somebody adds to this your name, you're gonna show there. For tutors, it might be even if you are not having profiles on tutoring platforms, right? They usually charge you a fee, so you don't want to get clients through this because they're going to charge you 20-30%. But having your name on Wisend or something else, even if you're not using the profile, might help, because you are going to come up in Google search. Yeah, LinkedIn, social media. So the most common ones will be, LinkedIn is super well ranked always. So make sure when you have your LinkedIn personal profile, but sometimes you have business profile, your website is there. Because it doesn't matter that your website ranks somewhere low. If somebody's gonna go to your LinkedIn and they can click on your website, they're gonna find you. But now, one small tip, LinkedIn likes to hide your website, so people have to know where to click. So for example, this is probably, and this might be better visible because this is business, right? Yeah. Oh no, it's also, I think you have to click more. Where was it? See, I even don't remember. Yeah, here's visit website. But if you have, for example, personal profile, and most tutors are gonna have this, so they're not gonna have separate one, you need to more somewhere here. Oh yeah, maybe because I'm not in the view. So let's put Michael, maybe. Michael. Because mine is in edit mode. Okay, Michael's not in edit mode. So his is gonna be, to be honest, I even don't, here, contact info. So see, it's so hidden, people don't even know, even though like I'm reviewing it like so many times, people don't know where to find it. So make sure you maybe add it in description, maybe a big banner, this is my website here, this is very visual place, right? Or here, or under the first job that you have, right? Make sure it's easier to find than versus what LinkedIn wants people to find. So yes, let's see the final few that LearnCube has. So here we were. And Capterra, this is also for ratings. There's gonna be also blogs here. Sometimes if you have, so for example, I'm gonna have, for some reason, it shows my Facebook page. I don't know why. Now it shows YouTube. It didn't before. Now it shows YouTube. But this is important to remember. YouTube is owned by Google, right? So it's going to be more and more integrated. So make sure. Yeah.
This was actually a good point, Natalia. We had a question just before on, is it true that YouTube helps improve the Google rank?
Yes, it does. Simply because I think ultimately in a few years, it's going to be more and more, right? YouTube has its own keywords and its own ranking. So when you go to YouTube, this is like independent, but as you can see what happens here, Google adds it to the feed, so what people scroll. The same as with Google Maps. So with tutoring, it's not going to be here, but let's say, let's see if it is. Sometimes it, see. So for example, Google Maps too, not only because people are going to go and click on the maps, right, which is the most natural way, but also if you notice, it acts as the first thing people see. And then they see this one. And very often when they see those, they click. So make sure that you're on Google Maps, and how to make it, you just go to Google My Business and you establish your business there. And interestingly enough, because this is slightly different algorithm too versus like the main feed you see in Google. So could happen in main Google, you're not gonna show, but here you're gonna show, right? So this is great for private tutors to know, to be established here. And then a few tips. So one, for sure you want to have a website, because if you see somebody like this, Russian math tutor, nobody's gonna trust it's a real business. Like your website, it doesn't have to be sophisticated, complex, and so on and so forth, but it has to exist because people treat it as valuation that you are a real person. Oh no, they have websites, sorry, they don't have directions. But still you are gonna see certain businesses that don't have website. Oh, here, the tutoring center, right? So you can see it stands in the negative way. And probably when you're going to review them, you're just going to ignore. The other thing is, remember to have ratings on Google Maps. It doesn't have to be the biggest number ever. A few ratings is already enough. It already builds trust. Obviously, like once you grow with your business, you add more and more and more. But like, don't worry that in the beginning you have, I don't know, 3, 4, 5. It's okay. It's better than nothing.
Natalia, would you say that Google Maps is possibly the best place for somebody to start their review kind of curation? Or would you suggest, let's start with, I'm going to ask 2 questions, one for a school, so, or let's say a tutoring center that's got a physical presence, and one for a tutor that's predominantly based in, let's say, a small city. How would you kind of recommend them in terms of which review will give them the best kind of bang for buck? Not only will they be more visible when people are searching for them, but also will have some kind of positive benefit?
Of course, if you have lessons in person, so you care more about your local neighborhood, this is a must, right? If you are purely online, you might not get the biggest amount of leads from this, but it's still going to help you. And I'm going to show you why. Obviously, your Google map is linked to where you are based, or what address did you give to Google, right? But interestingly enough, even if somebody sits, I don't know, let's say in Germany, and you're a tutor in London, so you're not only going to come in the search for them because they sit there, but also what Google My Business does is it takes this space on the right hand side. So even if it doesn't show on map for this particular client who sits in Germany because you are in London, it might come up here. And normally you would ask, okay, so what happened with this side of the Google search if I don't have Google My Business? I think you guys don't, right? It's empty. So this is your natural advantage of taking this space, which is otherwise empty. Great
tip, Natalia. We got to check that out.
Really good tip.
I was like, oh my God, we don't have one.
Yeah, keep in mind that like Google algorithm is a big black box. So people know which factors influence it, but they don't know how the algorithm and the equation works because there are so many factors. And as I showed you, sometimes if people type it, math teacher near me, the Google map comes, and sometimes it doesn't. And who knows why, right? But in general, the more kind of places you can establish yourself, the better, because you never know how people are going to find you, especially that it doesn't take a long time. You just go to Google My Business, you ask them to send you a postcard with the code, and then you just fill out the profile, that's it. And you link your website if you have it, right? You can create one with Google for free too. It's not the best quality because it's just based on algorithm, but if you want, it's for free, so do it too.
Natalia, I was just thinking, like, one of the real takeaways, and I realize that we may not have a huge amount more time, but one of the major takeaways from listening to you is this idea of you kind of don't know what Google's going to show. And I think we've definitely been caught out with that. We're like, oh, there's a review site, no one's looking at it, there's no point in us spending any time on it. But Google's doing all this stuff all the time. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that was being shown, or I didn't update that. Maybe it was my Facebook page and I hadn't updated that. And then suddenly, like, every time somebody's, Googling LearnCube, they're seeing an outdated version of my Facebook profile or about page. And I just think that's why, like, your website is so important. It's the one place that you actually have full control over.
Yes, that's correct. And also one thing in mind, keep in mind that even if you delete certain things, they sit on Google for a few weeks. So don't be surprised if you are gonna delete your profile, for example, that is deactivated and confirm. You can't really find it on Facebook. I think it's gonna still sit 2 or 3 weeks with Google because they remember it.
Yeah. We've got an interesting question here. Just if you had any insight into whether you would choose a Facebook review or a Google review.
Good question. I would say it really depends. You have to learn where people mostly discover you.
Yeah,
so,
I was thinking that.
Yes. I would kind of still prioritize slightly more Google reviews, because even if they discover you on Facebook, they're gonna look you up, right? Like they're gonna check who you are. So it's gonna come in Google anyway. And that's the way where I want to, many people come to me, should I take care of SEO and so on and so forth. And 90% of the time I'm gonna tell them no, like there are better ways. Because the beauty of, we have very different businesses, right? So you have tech, I have tech. The conversions we get from the websites are gonna be, I don't know, 1 to 5, if you are super brilliant, 10%. Tutors, they don't need to have 1,000 views to their website to succeed. They need to have, I don't know, 20 where 50% of people convert. When people convert, when they come to your website and they trust you. And it's usually a referral, or because they have been following you on social media for a while, or because you have emailed to them, so you kept in touch, right, for quite a long time. And that's where a website comes into play, because people find you in so many places. There has to be this central point where they can find the most important things about you. Because let's be honest, social media is great for having the audience and engaging them and so on and so forth. But it's not a great thing first to contact you. Very often, if you're not friends, it's just gonna go to spam, and believe me, most people don't know where to check this box. 2 is you don't really have specific place where you can tell, okay, these are the subjects I teach, these are the rates I have, right? So that's really important to treat it as like kind of central hub where all the things happen around it. So your Google, your social media, and all your activity.
Yeah. For me, what you've really told me as well is not that, it's more about you've got a certain level of like web hygiene you have to have. I think you've really indicated that with your Google Maps. You've talked about it on your Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and your website. Like all of that needs to be consistent and professional, because that's, regardless of the SEO, that's just important from a trust factor. But I was wondering, you said something that I thought raised the idea of like, a lot of people refer like, oh, you should talk to Natalia. She's based in, I don't know, Cupertino or something like that. They'll probably, maybe they will Google like Natalia Cupertino, I don't know, math tutor as an example. So I kind of wonder if that's quite important in your about page on your website, because that probably has enough SEO juice that if somebody's really looking for that specific long tail keyword, they're at least going to be able to find you, because you've put, these are all the different ways people might describe me in a referral. Like I don't know, like maybe I'm a extreme runner. They might go, oh, he said something about an extreme runner. Oh, yeah, I should put that in there. And so all of those things.
That's so good. Yeah.
On your about page, right?
Yes, that's so important question. So for example, what I notice is people would like, especially if we are a small business, they love to brand themselves as school because it looks more professional, right? But when it comes to teaching, then nobody remembers what kind of school it was. They remember it was Miss Kate who is teaching me, right? Or my Miss Kate something, right?
Yeah.
So make sure if you want to brand yourself, even as a school, on your website, there's also your name there. Because that's going to help with Google. If somebody doesn't remember your business name, they're going to remember who was the teacher. And the same if you're a bigger company, obviously you have your business name, but then you have certain teachers. Make sure they are listed there and on your website. I don't know, with the photo, most importantly with the name, because people might be looking them up. So you want them to come to your website then.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you just said was so clever, Natalia, is like, if you consider that your conversion rate might be 50% if you're a tutor and you just need to convey trust, just having one or two more people that actually successfully find you when they search can make the difference between you getting one more student every single month. Like that's huge. And it just can come from really thinking about how people might describe your business and refer you.
Yes, and many people don't think about referrals as a marketing tool. It shouldn't be the case. Like referrals are the most powerful marketing tools for small businesses, but also businesses based on trust, which are in this case tutors and schools. Because you don't want to send your kid to any school. You want to send them to the school that you know they're going to deliver the results. And it's interesting also because when you think about referrals, you could expect, oh, my family member or like my friend is going to just mention the name of the tutor. But what happens then is people, before they contact this tutor, they still check them. What kind of like, you want to have this basic understanding or this basic fit, whether what this tutor does is what I really need. So, you know, like you're going to have general input from a friend. Oh, check this English teacher, or check this math teacher, or check this physics teacher, right? Versus, for example, you know, oh, your kid needs somebody who kind of can take care of his energetic character, or like you know, like or the fact that he likes to play a lot, like so he would be looking for more like playful tutor, right? And that's why they're gonna look you up, and the content you produce, so your YouTube, your Facebook, your website, are gonna tell them what kind of person you are. Or sometimes it's gonna be, you know, like they're looking for something particular. They're not really looking for the whole math subject. They're just looking for somebody who specializes in algebra, because this is the weakest point, right? So that's why it's so important. Even though your business is based on referrals, you have this neutral space, which is a website that they don't feel pressured. If they call you, you know, there's kind of expectation, pay for the lessons, right? They want to do, especially these days, I think it's important to acknowledge how many people are introverts. They hate calling. Like for me, it's the worst thing ever. Like, to be honest, I realized I discount like maybe not tutoring, but like similar businesses. I don't know, hairdresser, restaurant, something. If there's something, if they don't disclose certain basic information on the website, I just never contact them, because for me, it's a huge risk. They're not going to provide what I need, what service I need.
Yeah. That's a great point, Natalia. And I think one that we're going to have to end on. I really appreciate you, sharing your ideas. Natalia, do you want to take us back to the normal view, and then we'll finish up?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. So, look, I hope you who have been listening have really enjoyed today. I've definitely learned a lot. I just find it fascinating to have guests just like yourself, Natalia. So thank you so much. And Herbert, I loved your 7 fatal mistakes. They were totally brilliant. And if you want to hear more from Corinne, you're going to have to hear about her next time. So definitely tune in next time. So thanks very much for listening, and we've really enjoyed it. I've learned a ton. I hope you have too. Please shoot us through any questions you may have, and look forward to seeing you next time on the Get More Students webinar on the last Thursday of every month. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.